Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Harnessing the Power of Cannabis for Emotional Freedom, Yogic Wisdom and Plant Medicine to Transform Difficult Emotions into Power and Peace. My name is Stephen Dye. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I am so thrilled to be with you here today because I have for a long time wanted to find someone who could really teach us how to work with cannabis in a conscious way. It's a plant that has many millennia of history, worked with shamanically, but has really become commercialized, controversial in different ways. And what we want to really focus today on is how can this really be an ally in our growth, in our evolution, our emotional healing. And we're going to get to explore that with a real pioneer in this arena. Her name is Becca Williams. She's an emotional liberation facilitator. She's an emotions therapist, clinical nutritionist, and RD. And it's not necessary to actually partake of cannabis for this call. You can get good value from it, but we're also going to talk a bit how it can be complementary and how you can work with your emotions in a way that really helps to amplify and deepen as well. So, Becca, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Stephen. It's great to be here. I am delighted that you and the Shift team have chosen to bring your innovative spirit to the cannabis space. Absolutely. And this really is the cutting edge with this plant medicine. So I am very excited to be introducing my teachings on the Shift Network. Thanks.
Ah, great. Well, I'm super excited that we'll have not just today, but we are doing a brand new program with Becca. It's called The Power of Cannabis for Emotional Freedom, and we'll share more about that if you want to go further in this work. So, Becca, I'd love for you to begin with a little bit of your journey into working with
Mm.
cannabis in this more conscious and therapeutic way, and really take us on that journey with you.
Well, a very wise friend of mine has a word for people who have done enough work on themselves to have experienced moments of clarity, which leads to being in high flow. And he calls them glimpsers. And that is having gotten a glimpse of clarity and high flow. They're eager to have more of it in their lives. And I was a glimpser. And the glimpses for me came as I self medicated with cannabis for many years to calm crippling anxiety that I wrestled with. I mean, I wrestled with it on a daily basis. And starting in college, all those decades ago, I was introduced to cannabis. And when I communed with the plant, I felt better. There was a euphoria, there was a lightness that let me see my life in a different way. And I would call that a glimpse. But the downside was that the cannabis could also take me the other way and intensify the anxiety. So medicating with cannabis wasn't the be all end all for me. And perhaps, some of our audience can identify with that. But with these glimpses, I recognized that my life could be different and I wanted more of that good feeling. So I kept searching. And about 10 years ago, I encountered the emotional release work that I now teach. And it's created and developed by a dear mentor and friend and colleague of mine, GM Kulsa. And this emotional liberation work opened me to ongoing altered states of consciousness so that I could access my deep inner resources for healing. And through years of experimentation with this model, I discovered that small amounts of cannabis facilitated the ability to go in deeper, in tandem with this emotional release work, much deeper, with particular ratios of CBD and THC. And the challenge is finding the sweet spot. That is where the plant medicine amplifies the emotion that you want to process and release that emotion. Because too much cannabis can numb the high flow state, and then a person loses the opportunity in that session anyway to process and release. And importantly, students under my careful guidance learn how to find their sweet spot in this what I call self-therapy model. It is self-therapy. I mean, that is, I teach you how to read your emotions so that you can bring up what's underneath them so you can process and release them. And just like what I went through, this work, this course is designed for anyone who finds themselves stuck in emotional pain and feeling bad, but unsure how to feel better. I've been there, I know. Hmm.
Let's talk a little bit more about that sort of the overdoing it first side, because I think that's where a lot of the stigma comes, that people just, oh, they numb out, they just kind of escape, is escapism. And so how do you recognize if you're sort of starting to get that to that threshold, or use cannabis in a way that sort of might be avoiding the deeper work that you need to do versus like in helping it?
That's a really important question. And I find that cannabis as a spirit plant uh, holds us the way we need to be held. So there are people who use cannabis to numb and feel better because they're numbing. If they don't numb, then that terrible feeling, those emotions come up and bother them. And so we call it, there's sativa and indica, and what we call that is indicouch. So indica is indicouch. And so what she will do is take and hold people who need to feel better and don't know how to do that, and they will be there for however long it takes. And in my work, I often have people come to me who say, I realize that I've had this dependence on cannabis and I'm tired of it, and I don't want that anymore, and I need a different relationship with it. And so, in one of our bonuses that we'll be talking about, there is a sensitization program where you can actually flip that if you're ready to do that and begin down this road. So, cannabis in this spiritual mode can support introspection and emotional exploration. And it modulates the brain. It deepens your awareness and your personal growth. And, it's been shown to enhance the process of neuroplasticity. And so that is the ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections in the brain so that we can develop new patterns of thought and behavior, helping to overcome limiting subconscious beliefs. So we're turning it in on itself, if you will, in answer to your question, that somebody who needs to move out of this space of being dependent on cannabis to feel better can actually turn it into an ally to go deeper, and actually heal those difficult emotions. Now, coincidentally, meditation has been revealed to do the same thing, but a lot of people have a hard time meditating, particularly the silent mindfulness meditation that's so popular today. And the process that we do in emotional liberation is not the sitting mindfulness meditation, but a much more active, expressive movement and breath that comes to us through the Kundalini tradition. And my students have often nicknamed it things like the neuro workout, because we are conditioning in the nervous system, and we are creating new neural networks. Others call it the unmeditation meditation, because it is so different than trying to sit with your pounding thoughts and going silent and trying to meditate that way. And, while we're talking about this aspect of cannabis, people often come to me and say that they love cannabis, as I say, but it's come to a point where it makes them jittery and it doesn't feel good anymore. And I do love helping people reset their relationship with this plant. Yeah.
So maybe paint a picture of like, so we're pivoting from the kind of the more escape oriented, just feel better, to like the deep relational, even reverential way of working with it. So what are some of the things that help to shift that relationship and set the right context and intention for entering into a practice really with cannabis?
Well, this is very much a multidisciplinary approach, because the cannabis, as one of my students says, is it's not the engine, but it's the oil that helps the engine run. And so
Nice.
it's a very pivotal tool in this. But importantly, cannabis works better or best in a container. And I have found that this container is extraordinarily effective and efficient in helping people feel better fast. And the piece I like about this, because I really went all over the map looking for a lot of answers that I never really found until I encountered this approach, is that it's a codified step-by-step approach to learning to be in touch with your emotions, and then threading the needle on that in how they're showing up in your life. Because once we get in touch with what's going on intuitively, we have a whole life out there. We need to live our life out there. And so if we are affecting changes internally, and then we walk out into our same old life with certain toxicity in what we're doing, a dead end job or relationships that aren't particularly supportive, then we don't know what to do. And the big piece of this work is that it actually allows you to transition in a very easy way to your life out there.
I like that. I like the metaphor of the engine and the oil too. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
So the emotional freedom technique would be more the engine. That's the process, and then you're kind of lubricating it, making it go better with the cannabis. It sounds like.
Right. And what we have going on here, importantly, is the mind wants to know things, right? And we feed the mind. So we talk to them about the emotions and what the emotions are. And then once we know that in a cognitive way, then we take that into the intuitive, and we drop in through various practices to do this work, so that we're actually stirring up the emotions that are in yogic science that are tethered to trauma. So we're stirring up the emotions, whether they're anxiety or sadness or depression or anger, so that we can bring them up and be in touch with them, so we can process them, so we can release them.
Well, I love that it's a step-by-step process, I know you're going to go into much more depth in your upcoming course, but maybe you give us a little glimpse about what are some of those key steps that a lot of people don't think of when they engage with cannabis as a practice.
Yes. So what we want to do is become very familiar what with the emotions and what they are, because we have had most of us have had little to no education around what we're feeling and why we're feeling it, and that's at the very core of what we do here. Uh, and so we learn about the emotions, and we learn how to touch into what we're feeling and why we're feeling it through the practices that hail from the Kundalini tradition. But I actually create this container where I use narrative prompts for you to bring up whatever is knocking loudest on your head. And this is a very important point, Stephen, because a lot of practices, and I know from my own experience, it's about visualization. And I had a really hard time visualizing walking on a sand beach and the sun is shining and there's gentle water flowing, and or through a forest or whatever. No, what I had was, I was trying to fend off those difficult emotions that were coming up. So what we do in this work is we just bring them all, bring them here. When you come with me, you bring whatever is knocking loudest on your head, and we will move through that so that we can process and release that through these Kundalini practices and my narrative prompts.
So you want to feel things more intensely, it sounds like. Do you also want to sort of relate to them differently?
You want to be with them. So
Mhm.
you want to gain a new perspective on your feelings. So, you're reducing fear and resistance to them, so that you can open to receive deeper healing, whether there are areas in your life that simply need tending to, or there are deeper issues that you'd like to explore in order to process and release them. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
in the end, you're getting in touch with your best self. You may at this moment not even know what your best self is. So you're gaining a heightened awareness of your emotional patterns, and you begin to reframe them to your benefit in order to move through triggering episodes with increasing grace and perseverance. And, in a world where so many are overwhelmed by emotional struggles and the lingering effects of trauma, it's easy to believe that strong feelings are something to fear or suppress. But as you'll learn in this course, emotions are not the enemy. Um, they are powerful allies, rising to heal the past and protect us from future harm and guide us toward inner peace. And man, when we can understand and embrace them, even the most intense emotions can become a medicine rather than a poison, and helping you to release unresolved pain and break free from limiting patterns and reclaim a sense of wholeness and balance. And this course provides those tools and the insights to reframe your relationship with emotions and empowering you to move beyond suffering and into a life of clarity and, importantly, emotional resilience that leads to deep personal healing.
I know you want to take us on a, deeper guided process that helps to shift our relationships with our emotions, and also can be used with in combination with cannabis as well, if people choose. So I think now would be a great time to guide us in that process, and then we can talk more about it afterwards.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah. So I always like to do this from my meditation cushion. So I'm going to move over there and do it from there. So we're going to do a practice that will help you reset yourself so that you can optimize how you view yourself and get you familiar with what you're feeling. It's a powerful breath pranayama to increase your self-awareness, to build intuition and sensitivity so you can be aware of what you're feeling. Now, if you plan on amplifying with cannabis, and if you were smoking or vaping, this is where you would be doing that. And do remember that less is more, just a toke or two, maybe. And we would like to take a moment to honor the plant. And we usually do this by saying, may the spirit of this plant help you become a master of your emotions. So get comfortable now, whether you're sitting on a cushion like I am or in a chair. Make sure that your feet are flat on the floor in the chair and you are sitting up straight, whether you are sitting in a chair or you're on the floor. And we have a special mudra, a hand position that locks and guides energy flow and reflexes to the brain. So interlace your fingers so that they form one fist and extend your two index fingers upright. So it's like the church and the steeple. And bring it in front of your nose and even with your mouth, okay? And then close your eyes nearly all the way down, where you're just letting a little light in, okay? And the breath goes like this. 4 strong, powerful inhales through a rounded mouth, and you're blowing up your belly with each one. And then 1 strong exhale through the nose at a constant beat of 1 second each. Okay, so it'll sound and look like this. Got it? So let's go ahead. I want you to try it, and I'm going to give us a good beat to keep us going. And so go ahead and start. Go ahead. I'm just going to watch the time for us. Strong, pulsed breath with the eyes barely open. It'll just take you a few moments to get used to all that. If this is the strongest you've ever done this sort of breathing, you'll probably notice that you may need to blow your nose. You may need to adjust, but find your own strength that's sustainable, okay? 4 breaths in through the mouth, 1 long exhale through the nose. And continue that while I talk. So breathe and feel. What does it mean to feel? Perhaps it's like sensations. Identify the sensations. What are they? Where do you feel them in your body? They'll be present in certain areas of your body, and that's something that you want to notice. And then how do you describe those feelings? Is it tight? Is it hard? Is it dull? Is it dark? Is it jittery? Is it sharp? You're going to have whatever descriptions come to your mind. And while you continue this breath, describe that feeling to yourself. You're retraining yourself to accept these feelings, to not be afraid of them, to not run away from them, not to squelch them. Now, at this point, some people can't really feel anything. If that's been your habit, that's okay. Just keep breathing and inviting the feelings. When you feel safe, they'll come up. Other people are overwhelmed by them. They're so strong. But it'll all even out in the protection of this breathing. And in a few moments, as you continue to breathe, I'm going to ask you to focus on one feeling or one memory. So now, pick out whatever seems strongest to you. Whatever feeling is pushing itself to the front of your awareness, to the front of the line, saying, pay attention to me, because it feels the strongest. So choose whatever that is now, and as we finish this part of the breathing, bookmark that memory or that feeling, and we'll come right back to it, okay? So now, inhale deeply through your nose, deep, 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 and hold the breath and squeeze the root lock, your anus, sex organs, and navel. Squeeze, squeeze, hold, and release. Inhale again. Once again, hold the breath and squeeze the root lock, your anus, sex organs, the belly, the navel. Squeeze, squeeze and hold. Hold that breath a few more seconds. And exhale powerfully and blow it out through your mouth. And keep your eyes closed and sit calmly. And let your hands rest in your lap or on your knees. And don't move. Just sit still, calmly, relaxed. And just be aware. Just let the sensations flow. Just enjoy the calmness to whatever extent you feel peaceful, calm, stable, strong. Acknowledge that. And just let the clarity be used now to bring up that feeling or emotion. You may not want to disturb this peace with the emotion, but you're going to find it again through the emotion. So bring back up your strong emotion or your memory, and let the memory bring up the emotion. And now that you're calm, just feel. Let that feeling come. It may not be comfortable. Most heavy emotions are not wanted, but let it flow through you. Feel that you can feel and that you're going to be okay. What are those sensations like? Let them pass freely through your body without any obstruction. You don't like them. They feel uncomfortable, but you see they're not going to hurt you. You can handle them. So breathe. Just breathe naturally. Rather than it being scary or overwhelming, you feel equal to the feeling, or even its master. It's like meeting somebody, and it's awkward at first, and then you're comfortable. So now use the sensation of that emotion as the embodiment of something that you're relating to. So just ask that feeling itself, and let the answer not come in thoughts, but in a feeling. Ask, what's up? Why are you here? What's the problem? What's the source of this feeling? What caused it to arise? And it may be immediately obvious. And if you get an answer to why it's here, or if you didn't, ask again. If you easily identify a person, a place, or thing, or situation, then go deeper and ask more about what is it that's so bothersome? And just keep asking and feeling intuitively the responses until you drop down to the heart of the matter. As deep as you can understand it right now, you'll see why you're feeling this. You see the situation that's triggered it. The situation could be immediate, it could be in the past, might be in the future. It could be something very deep and timeless as well. So you see that now. So you know what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And the next step is to ask the same feelings, what do I need to do about this? And see if you get an instant hit, a response. Not the mind, but let the emotions speak. Oh, my emotions. What will have you be satisfied? What will have you go away? And you may just see something immediately. It may not be as clear, but ask again in a different way. And again, watch if your mind tries to give you the answers. But get fresh information directly from your gut or your heart or whatever, wherever that feeling is. What do I need to do to solve this? What's the solution? You may hear it and not like the answer. You may hear it and not believe it. You may think it's impossible, but just accept the information for right now. And your intuition knows all of that. The emotion helps bring you face to face with that information. But not everybody gets it every time, so you have to be patient. You can't try too hard. You just have to ask and then allow things to come. Now, whatever answer you have, again, not judging it or believing it or not believing it, just accepting it for the moment. See yourself implementing that solution. See yourself doing that, knowing that the information you got and using it. And you'll get to see how it turns out when you follow the advice of your intuition, of your emotions, of your soul. So see yourself implementing that solution if you heard one, and you may feel better. You may feel some relief, and that's the positive feedback of your intuition telling you, yes, this is what's needed. The next step, you may not be able to do it right now, and that is taking the action that you just imagined into real time, in real life. And you may not feel that you can do that or be ready for that now, but the sooner that you can do it, the better you will feel. And like most people, you'll need to slowly learn to trust that these things are accurate. If you're unable to reach any of these steps or complete them, your emotions will faithfully remain and let you know about this. They'll keep reminding you because they only want to help you solve your problems and get back to that well-being that's so wonderful to experience. So now, inhale deeply and exhale. And begin to move your fingers and your toes, your wrist, your ankles, roll your shoulders, and slowly come back to the room, blinking your eyes open. And there you go, learning to be in touch with that deep well of resources.
Great. Well, thank you for that guided meditation. Very, very deep process that you're offering. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about the connection between emotion and intuition. I know this is really central to your work. And I have to say that one of the things that I've really appreciated about cannabis is the opening of intuition. I feel like it's one of the plant medicines that most easily opens intuitive channels for different downloads and insights. So maybe share a little bit about how you can optimize that relationship so you kind of see emotions and intuition kind of work fluidly together and you get deeper insights into whatever you're wanting clarity on.
Yeah, this is huge. You know, what we understand with difficult emotions and why they're here is that when we pay attention to them, guided by our set of esoteric tools, we're able to tap into that deep inner knowing, which is our intuition, which, when we learn to access it, is a bridge to our soul. And when we can begin exploring our inner self with this new awareness, we can experiment with our inner guidance and evaluate the results and evaluate with what comes up for us, you know, the answers that we need to reset ourselves. And in regard, I want to add, in regard to developing our intuition, it's fun. You know, it's fun to develop a real sense of curiosity about how this plant medicine can support emotional and personal growth. And we want to bring in a sense of joy in doing this work, which eventually leads to a sense of gratitude because we are so awestruck by the depth of this healing.
Beautiful. I want to ask about creating space as well. It's something I've learned from some shamans who work with cannabis as a plant medicine, and just the setting of a kind of a prayerful space and intentions, and even some protection, so that there's like no influences that we don't necessarily want in our space. I wonder, is that something that you find is important as well in working with cannabis?
Yes, I find creating a ceremonial space is really pivotal to this work because it's all about set and setting. We hear this talk about set and setting in the psychedelic world all the time, but it really is important about where our head is in coming into the space and how the space is situated, the environment that we have. And so I like to address both of those in my work in our sanctuary during the course of my teachings. So we do some breath work at the beginning, some short breath work, just to really ground ourselves. We acknowledge with an intention That is, I am moving toward an enduring inner stability where nothing disturbs my inner peace. And we say that all together so that we're not there yet, but it's an intention. And so then we move in to the teachings, eventually into the practice. And I am building in, the practices are so important. I am building in a practice with every module during the course of this time together.
Hmm. I want to also ask a little bit more about you're integrating some breath and mudra practices that are coming out of the Kundalini tradition. How are those really helped to be complementary to some of what you're just doing with sort of emotional alchemy? So how are the breath and hand motions actually help as well?
I love, I love the term emotional alchemy because that is really what we're doing here. And so, what happens is that the meditations that I have chosen particularly correspond to the different emotions. So, the practices are intended to focus on particular, I want to say, emotions or feelings where we are, so it actually uh, is an invitation, a reinforcement of what we're doing in bringing this up, because it's all about bringing up whatever is bothering us. And what that means during the course of this work is that we are releasing, and we can release in many ways, from crying to gagging and coughing and just burping. I mean, there's all kinds of things that stimulate these toxins, this psychic junk, to come up so that we can liberate it.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a little bit more about how you kind of sequence things over time. So if you're doing multiple sessions over time, and let's say you've got a bigger challenge with your mother that you're trying to work through from childhood, it's like how might you kind of design a sequence of like working through layers and different dimensions of that over time?
So I think I want to first say that we know now that we all have been traumatized in one way or another. There's sort of a spectrum of trauma where it's less trauma to developmental trauma, heavy trauma, and everything in between. So for some of us, it may be just really recognizing and bringing up the stuff that has been on our head, but we haven't, for some reason, been able to release it. And then further down the spectrum, where it's heavy trauma, where for me, for instance, it was developmental trauma. I grew up in a very challenging childhood environment from all of my entire childhood. That takes longer. But I want to say that it's layers. So it's the way we look at it is layers of trauma. So when we are focused on one and we actually move it through and release it, we are done with that particular layer of trauma and we can put it to rest. Now, on that spectrum, if we have a lighter set of trauma, it's going to be faster. If it's a heavier set of trauma, I'm going to call it a set, it's going to take longer because there are more layers. So it can be ongoing over a period of time. But importantly, this work is self therapy. So you are going to have all the tools by the end of our 7 weeks to take them and work on your own to move this through. And a big deal is that it's patience, because it took years, decades. You've been dragging this weight around with you, and now in my world, there's no overnight solution to it. But this work is, I say, the most effective and efficient that I have encountered, and I think it does a person good.
Mhm. Well, I've been asking you a lot of questions, which partially just because I'm just very curious, but I want to just create a little space. Anything that you are wanting to make sure people understand about how they can create more emotional freedom with cannabis, um, that we haven't gotten to go into yet?
So I like to live by this motto, and that if life is an experiment, you cannot lose because you just try it again. And with cannabis in this equation, if it takes practice to be in touch with your emotions, just like anything else that you get good at. If you want to be able to walk side by side and with your intuition, you're going to want to do a lot of walking. And so with the cannabis, it's that. So I've had students who have experimented with different ratios of cannabis. I always like a 2-to-1 CBD to THC, and I teach this all in the first module of what you want to experiment with. Some people go with a 1-to-1. Some people, because they are so sensitive, only do CBD. So it's important in order to embrace the spirit plant of cannabis, that you take a very open and flexible approach to it, and it is anchored in patience.
Mm, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Becca, fascinating subject, and I think it's so important since, cannabis is mainstreamed in so many places, and I think there's just not enough people who are approaching it in this way that really optimizes the potential benefit. And so many people, I think, just kind of get into spirals and loops without actually really deepening the healing, their awakening and transformation. So, what a super useful perspective and really blessing to learn from you. So, I want to talk about your upcoming course, which is a great way to
Mhm.
really go deeper and turn this not just into a little bit of inspiration, but into a practice that can really heal you and open you and free you. So the Becca's going to be teaching a brand new program for Shift called The Power of Cannabis for Emotional Freedom. Therapeutic practices rooted in yogic wisdom that transform difficult emotions into power and peace. You can find it at the URL emotionalfreedomwithcannabis.com, emotionalfreedomwithcannabis.com. It's a 7-week program. There's no prerequisites. You don't have to use cannabis either. It can be very valuable just to
Mhm.
learn the process of the emotional freedom work as well. And so, Becca, I'd love for you to share some of your intentions for what people will come away with from this program, and then we'll give a tour of the modules.
Sure, sure. Well, I I mentioned that by seeing your unruly emotions in this new light, you'll begin shifting your relationship with emotional discomfort, and that creates greater openness and self-acceptance. But throughout the course of the 7 weeks, it's important to understand that we'll be conditioning our nervous system, because when the emotions overtake us, we can't feel anything. It's just we're all over. So the important piece through the practices, through the breath work, is strengthening the nervous system so that you can be aware of what you're feeling and you have the strength to deal with what's coming up. So that will be a thread throughout this entire 7 weeks, together. Importantly, I love the community aspect in my work, and I really want to emphasize that during the course of our time together. I want to be able to take questions. I want to be able to bring people together to compare and contrast and learn what others are doing. I learned so much from my students in regard to this. I've had one student come back and he put a whole dilution equation together for cannabis, and what he found for himself was that he worked best at CBD 20 times more than THC. So that
Hmm.
little bit of THC uh, actually amplifies the emotion coming up. But the CBD is a very important piece of this, in that we know from the research that it calms the fight or flight response. And so that when we're scared to bring up the emotions, the CBD really helps us settle us down so that we can go inward and do this work at in a deeper level.
Makes total sense. Module 1 is called Gain an Understanding of Cannabis as a Healing Tool and Spiritual Ally.
Yeah, we're going to provide a foundational knowledge on cannabis and its therapeutic properties and how it can be applied mindfully for emotional healing. You will understand the ratio of the CBD to THC, the different types of ingesting. If you want to do a gummy beforehand, then you need to be able to understand that what's on your stomach, it's going to take, if you've just eaten dinner, it's going to take longer for it to come on than if you have if you've eaten lightly and it'll come on. Obviously, the inhalation methods of vaporizing and smoking either a pipe or a joint are immediate. So we will understand that as well. And I want you to be able to know what you're doing as we move into the rest of this course. And I will touch on your meditation station, as we call it, for our practice work, because you really want to do this regularly. I'm going to be calling on everyone to do this 11 minutes a day, a practice, because we're in training, right? We're conditioning our nervous system, so we want to do this on a daily basis. And you can, again, as you pointed out, Stephen, you can do it with or without cannabis. But I would like to see everybody doing the practice regularly.
Module 2, Break Reactive Cycles to Reclaim Your Emotional Freedom.
Yeah, that's about recognizing your recurring behaviors and your patterns. And we're going to be exploring their triggers and begin to detach from that automatic nature of going into a spiral.
Module 3, Harness Emotional Wisdom to Experience Deep Healing and Self-Awareness.
Yeah, we're going to be exploring key emotions that are driving your behavior, and we want to understand their true purpose, and we want to learn how to harness their gifts for the healing and growth.
Module 4, Transform Desire into a Pathway to Emotional Freedom.
We're going to be exploring the central role of desire in emotional reactivity and discover ways to transform desires for healing. And I know that we don't think in terms of desire as an emotion, but it actually is the mother of all emotions. And I need a desire to pick up this pen and write, or I need a desire to find a respectful, loving relationship. Desire is really important.
Module 5, Release Trauma to Turn Pain into Strength.
Yeah, we'll be, what can I call it, inventorying with compassion our past traumas and understanding their impact on current patterns and pain.
Module 6, Build Resilience to Recover from Setbacks and Thrive.
Yeah, I want you to develop resilience. That's what it's all about, and recognize the potential for growth and healing in every challenge faced. So when something comes out of left field, you're not thrown off by it. You are there, you're aware, and you learn to respond with emotional resilience.
And finally, Module 7, Rewrite Your Inner Story to Live with Authenticity and Purpose.
Yeah, we're going to end on a high note. So, you walk away with the ability to identify the outdated beliefs that have been holding you back, whether they stem from past experiences, societal conditioning, or fear-based thinking. And more importantly, you'll have tools to replace them with a mindset that aligns with your true values and your strengths and your purpose. And this is going to serve you well in all your relationships, and especially the one with yourself.
Well, what a great program. And again, it's all laid out in detail at emotionalfreedomwithcannabis.com. So if you choose to move forward, you'll get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Becca, which we just described. Those are sessions that include both interactive practices as well as Q&A time. You also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts, which enable you to go back and study and highlight practices and really work with this material. There are weekly exercises for home. There's a Facebook community to deepen your connection and support your experiences. There's a small group time to connect with other participants. On the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses designed to enhance your journey. There's the first one is actually a PDF with Becca called the Cannabis Sensitization Protocol. Becca, you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I remember what we were talking about in regard to some people have a dependence with cannabis and don't know uh, to how to change that. And these instructions will allow people to move through step by step and understand how they can reduce the amount of cannabis that they're using and optimize their experience at the same time.
Super useful. There's also another PDF and discount code. It's a guide to nutritional supplementation and discounts. I know there's a lot of great work being done with nutrition and plant medicine, and it would share a little bit about that special bonus.
Yeah, it's the clinical nutritionist in me offering that because I believe that if what we're doing is really to support a nervous system and brain health, and there are a number of different supplements that can be taken during the course of this work, or regular supplementation, and I'm extending that with a 20% discount so that it can be accessible to people who want to do it. And importantly, I have when they go to this, I have put in categories supplements that align with cannabis use. So. That, and along with microdosing psilocybin, just general brain health. And so people can, if they don't know anything about supplementation, they can go into those categories that I've specially created, and it's all laid out there. And all they have to do is really secure the supplements.
So that's just one more bonus, and but it's got a lot of value. And then there's a final bonus that you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. This is our way to encourage you to really take the time to go through the page at Emotional Freedom with Cannabis and tune in with your own knowing. And if you move forward today, you're going to get a video with Becca and Lex Pelger called Insider Information with Lex Pelger. Want to give us a little preview of what's coming there?
Oh my God, you're going to love Lex. Lex is he produces a weekly, and has for a number of years now, a weekly, very popular Substack, and I think it's on LinkedIn as well. It's called Cannabinoids and the People, and he's a biochemist and cell biologist, and he collects all of the research on a weekly basis. I mean, he goes through hundreds of studies, and he sifts through and he presents the most relevant every week. And he also, at the same time, he's kind of a Renaissance guy. He really, a huge interest of his is cannabis and spirituality. So in this conversation, we go into the history of how cannabis has been used spiritually, and he has just an awesome depth around that, and of course, cannabis in general. So it's really a fascinating discussion.
What a cool extra bonus. And that's really at the heart of what our whole network is dedicated to. So having cannabis contribute to our spiritual realizations and awakenings is such a blessing. So that's the insider information with Lex Pelger. So it's truly going to be a groundbreaking and very beautiful and practical program. We've kept the investment very accessible. It's just three payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start March 13th and run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. So there's some great testimonials about working with Becca. Becca's course has turned my life upside down and all around in a way that is not only positive, but absolutely necessary. Loving light, trustworthy, knowledgeable, and experienced guide, sunshine beaming from her soul. Beautiful testimonials about working with Becca. So you're in really good hands, and you will come out with a very different relationship with cannabis as a medicine plant and with your own emotional healing journey. So what a great investment in yourself. So,
Truly.
Becca, we're at the end of our time together. It's really been wonderful to be with you. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the Emotional Freedom with Cannabis course with you?
Yeah, I want to say that uh, to do this and do this well, you need to bring your all and be committed to doing this. I can give you and plan to give you my all in response to do this and really get the most out of it. Um, you'll want to bring your curiosity, your energy, your strength, your courage, and your intent to be emotionally resilient. And you will get optimization from doing that and just the best outcome. And I say that because I have worked with hundreds of people over the years in regard to this. And when they come in with that commitment to put their all into it and get their all out of it, it really is transformational.
Beautiful. Well, your passion is very infectious, and I thank you for opening the pathway for us to relate to cannabis in a much more conscious and evolutionary way. So, thank you,
So
Becca, and
much.
thank you all for joining. And look forward to seeing many of you in the program, The Power of Cannabis for Emotional Freedom. Therapeutic practices rooted in yogic wisdom that transform difficult emotions into power and peace. And again, it's at emotionalfreedomwithcannabis.com. Thank you very much.